North Korea. Let's talk North Korea. Let's talk North Korea preparing for war. At least according to the regime in Pyongyang. They're making an announcement after a lot of discussions with the Russians that they're, and I will bring that up in a moment, that they're making preparations for war due to threatening actions by the United States. Of course, North Korea has been in conflict with the United States ever since the Korean War. After the North Korean regime crossed the DMZ in 1950, sparking off the war that lasted 3 years. Ever since then, they have believed they've been in some sort of death struggle with the United States, and eventually they're going to reconquest the American occupation zone, quote unquote, in the South, which is the Republic of Korea, the South Korean government, and they've been in the state of perpetual readiness for war, or at least in a state of perpetual preparation for war ever since that. So what they mean by further accelerate war preparations, we don't exactly know. Could that mean, you know, upping missile production? Could that mean upping the amount of missile tests? Could that mean upping, who knows? It's accelerate war preparations. I will say that due to its partnership with Russia and how it comments about its partnership with anti-imperialist forces, it does seem that its partnership with the Russians, benefiting the Russian war effort in Ukraine, is going to extend, with South Korean officials already saying that the North Koreans have already produced 1 million shells for the Russians, which would be about double what the Europeans through the EU program have been able to provide the Ukrainians. I do want to say, I think it is a concern that the EU program was not able to beat North Korea in shell production and, shell shipments to our ally in Ukraine. I know a lot of people talk about it's a proxy war between the West, the United States, and Russia. But with the North Koreans sending Russia 1 million artillery shells and the South Koreans sending the Ukrainians 500,000 artillery shells, which is still 20,000 more than what the Europeans have sent up to this point. Sounds like it's a proxy war for the Korean Peninsula, really. Anyway, let's watch.
To North Korea now, where leader Kim Jong-un has ordered his country to accelerate war preparations. Kim claims the decision, which includes the nuclear weapons sector, is needed to counter what he calls unprecedented confrontational moves by the United States. He made the comments at his country's end-of-year party meeting, where he also laid out economic goals for next year. For more on
So I just, who doesn't like watching them do the whole collab, doing the whole shebang? Point is, though, besides the increase in artillery production for the Russians, I do want to bring something else that has been going on in this, like, hinting towards the acceleration towards war. And that is the massive increase in North Korean missile tests. Now, we have seen that the North Koreans have claimed that they've sent a spy satellite into the space to spy on, the United States, to spy on the world, and that they can take pictures of the White House. But that's not really what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is them firing their most powerful long-range missile as of about 2 weeks ago, after South Korea and South Korea and the United States had a meeting. And this missile, according to Japanese and other officials, could strike anywhere in the continental United States. This is intercontinental ballistic missile that can strike the United States. This is the deterrence that the North Koreans have been building towards. Not that, they can only strike a few islands or maybe only Hawaii, but eventually they could, in one desperate last move to dissuade an American intervention or to push reclamation of the Korean Peninsula, depending on what the regime's real goal is, which can only be speculated, considering how closed off it is. They can now hit the United States with nuclear weapons. Not only, they've been able to do that for a while, but with this missile, they can hit anywhere in the United States with nuclear weapons. This is of concern, not only for, the safety of me and the rest of you Americans who are in the continental United States, considering the temperament of the regime in Pyongyang and what they've previously said about what they'd like to do to the United States, But it's also of a concern because North Korea has been massively increasing, and it's been, I don't want to say it's been under everyone's nose because they've been doing it openly, but it feels like it's under everyone's nose. Did you guys know that in 2022, North Korea fired over 90 missile tests? That's a record. The previous record, which was in 2017, was 25. That's an extreme increase, an explosion of activity. But due to the war in Ukraine and the geopolitical situation around that, and the fear of nuclear war over Ukraine and over the Russian invasion of Ukraine, if the Russians were to like catastrophically fail and fall back on that, there was a lot of rumors about that. Because of that, it seems like it got very little attention. Very little attention. And look, I understand that many Americans will just sit back on the idea like, we got air defense, we can like shoot down the missiles reliably, I mean semi-reliably. We might be able to, if the North Koreans have like 50 of these things, who knows how many they're going to end up having. It's all highly classified, and they fire them like half of them at the United States. Maybe we shoot down 20, but if 5 get through, hell, if even 1 gets through, that could mean the deaths of millions of people, and you know that they're going to aim for major population centers. They're going to aim for Los Angeles. They're going to aim for San Francisco. They're going to aim for Dallas, Texas. They're going to aim for Washington, D.C., which, you know, I live 30 minutes away from Washington, D.C. I would not like to see the city be a massive crater. I'm not saying that if they were to fire or if the scenario was to play out, that we all get annihilated by the North Koreans. What I am saying that it's a real risk that could lead to the deaths of millions of people, and it is something we need to be vigilant about. Now, I honestly want to put forward the idea that seeking unilateral disarmament of North Korea from the way that Trump was trying to do it is what I would like to call brain dead. He went in there, and this was his negotiations with the North Koreans in 2017, 2018. After calling him Rocket Man and Fire and Fury, he went in there, he stopped training exercises with the South Koreans, which, you know, undercuts our military readiness on the Korean Peninsula. He goes over there, gives them that, gets nothing in return in order to open negotiations, sits down, and then his pitch to them is, give us all your nukes and you have a McDonald's on every street corner. Of course, they reject it because they want the nukes in order to guarantee their security, as it acts as a deterrent, which protects the regime, which is something they want to protect. And so asking for them to just give it all up at once in return for the lifting of sanctions and some economic investment, it was just too bold, too quick. When I think we should be more from the starting point, from when we start in our negotiations, the first goal should not be immediate disarmament of everything, because it's just not going to happen. It's not within the North Koreans' interests, and it's not like we can sanction them more into oblivion. I mean, we could try to sanction them more, but it's not like 80 or 90% of their trade is with us or something. Do we finally get to do the funding to Pyongyang? No, we don't get to finally do the funding to Pyongyang. What I would say we should do, and I'm not the only person who said this, I've seen people say something similar in foreign affairs, is create a general outline, not only for a slow denuclearization of North Korea, which means we lift some sanctions, they hand over some nukes, if you wanted to seriously pursue denuclearization. But what I think is more important is trying to create channels of communication and safeguards in place to avoid human error in an incident that could lead to North Korea using its nukes, considering, you know, the reputation of the regime, and we don't exactly know how stable the regime is, or how many safeguards they have in place to stop an accidental launch. So I think putting these safeguards in place, having communication between, for example, the North Korean and the American military, and having that communication be constant, I think establishing these things and keeping them around to make sure that we can prevent a nuclear accident, if we know that they're going to have these nukes for the foreseeable future, should be the first priority. Because if we know they're going to have the nukes and we don't have an immediate plan to get them, to make it so they get rid of the nukes, then the first thing we should do is find some way to make it so that, you know, we have some formal mechanism in place to try to decrease the chances of a nuclear accident. I know that sounds boring. It's not full denuclearization, but as long as they have nukes, the channel of communications need to be open, and we need to try to prevent any type of human error contributing to a massive catastrophe, especially when we're dealing with a semi-unstable regime in North Korea.